Okay. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Do we have a closed session report, Mr. City Attorney?
There's nothing to report.
Well, that was short. And we'll ask, would you lead us in the pledge?
Sure, yes, of course. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Litzter,
Here.
Councilmember Luevanos,
Here.
Councilmember Judge,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kavanaugh,
Here.
and Mayor Mashburn.
Here. Okay, agenda review. Anybody have any comments or Mr. City Manager, anything on agenda?
No, sir.
Okay,
I move that all resolutions and ordinances presented tonight be read in title only and all further reading be waived.
Second?
okay. Motion is second. Call for the vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Declaration of conflict. If any member of the city council may have a conflict of interest or any reason why that member must abstain from consideration of any matter on this agenda, he or she should so declare at this time. Anybody have a conflict? Thank you. Moving forward.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, the first item on the agenda is item 1D1, a proclamation recognizing October 11th, 2021 as Indigenous Peoples' Day, and Samantha Argabright is here for this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and members of the City Council. This evening, Julie Tuma Mayat Stensley is here to accept the Indigenous Peoples' Day proclamation on behalf of the Chumash tribe via Zoom. I will now read the proclamation. Whereas in 1977, the concept of Indigenous Peoples' Day was first proposed by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations-sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas. Whereas the City of Simi Valley acknowledges that it is built upon the homelands and villages of the Ventureña-speaking Chumash indigenous peoples of this region, and the city as we know it today, originally called Samiji by the Chumash, would not exist were it not for their stewardship. And whereas the City of Simi Valley is committed to protecting and advocating for the dignity of all people who live, work, and visit in our community, and to supporting the principles contained in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples endorsed by the United States in 2010. And whereas the city recognizes the value of many contributions made to our community through Indigenous peoples' knowledge, labor, spirituality, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and the cultural contribution that substantially shaped the character of Simi Valley. And whereas the City of Simi Valley offers gratitude to Indigenous people on behalf of all people in recognition of their care of the land. And whereas we set aside this day to reflect upon the struggles of Indigenous people of this land and to celebrate and honor the heritage, resiliency, and diverse culture of Indigenous peoples, including the Chumash, who originally settled what we know today as Simi Valley. Now therefore, October 11th, 2021 is hereby proclaimed Indigenous Peoples' Day in the City of Simi Valley to celebrate the thriving and resilient cultures and values of the Indigenous people in this community and encourage continued recognition, appreciation, and celebration of our goodwill and friendship with our local Indigenous peoples. Presented this 11th day of October, 2021.
Thank you. I understand our guest would like to speak.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. To Mayor Mashburn, Pro Tem Mayor, City Council members, staff, and all those who may be watching this evening. May I hope that you're well and healthy and staying out of this great wind that's been coming up. I am so grateful on behalf of the Barbareño Ventureño Band of Mission Indians, Chumash. We thank you. We thank you very much for this recognition, and what a beautiful proclamation that you just read. Um, Clearly, it touches us very deeply for that recognition. And as we as Native peoples, we're invested and always available in helping and teaching, and education for me personally is probably one of the most important things that we can contribute to cities and counties and areas in which we live in and have lived in for thousands and thousands of years. There's so much that I would like to be able to invest in, and in your great city there. The landscape over there I'm not real familiar with. I'm calling from my home in the Ojai Valley in Ventura County, but you know, we were a large our lands were vast and all very diverse, and we went into these places back and forth on annual visits with relatives, looking at the landscape there in your area, which is so beautiful in so many ways. So if there's ever any opportunities that we can come and visit and invest and get to know one another, and we're always available into schools and all these different things that we can start a relationship with. I really truly am thankful for this opportunity to speak. And again, thank you so much for this recognition. We are grateful.
Great. Well, thank you. And it's an open invitation to come to our city, of course, and to our city hall and meet with us. We'd love to sit down and visit with you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, next on the agenda is item 2, public statements on appointments, special presentations, and informal reports. All comments submitted by email have been provided to the City Council. However, they will not be read by the City Clerk this evening. All persons who are signed on to Zoom to speak for this public statements item 2 will be called on to speak for a period of no more than 3 minutes each. Persons addressing the City Council are requested to state their name and community of residence for the record. Again, this item is for agenda item 2 only.
For those wishing to issue public statements, please raise your hand on Zoom. And if you wish to speak during this particular section, you will be called upon and you can unmute yourself. Once your name is called, you'll be asked to unmute. For those participating by phone, you can press star 9 to raise your hand and star 6 to unmute when it's your turn to speak. Does not appear that anybody has their hand raised to speak for item 2.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, the next item on the agenda is item 3A1, adoption of a resolution for the appointment of commissioners to the Area Housing Authority of the County of Ventura Board of Commissioners. The reading of the resolution is as follows. Resolution number 2021-40, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Simi Valley appointing commissioners to the Area Housing Authority of the County of Ventura Board of Commissioners for terms ending December 10th, 2023 and September 30th, 2025. And Eric Chin is here for this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and members of the City Council. Staff is here tonight to conclude the recruitment for 2 city-appointed positions to the Area Housing Authority of the County of Ventura Board of Commissioners. The Area Housing Authority represents 7 jurisdictions in Ventura County, including Simi Valley. It is governed by a Board of Commissioners appointed by the jurisdictions it serves. At the September 13th, 2021 City Council meeting, the City Council selected Council members Judge and Litster to serve as the interview committee. On September 24th, 2021, the interview committee conducted interviews via Zoom and subsequently nominated Deborah Lane and Marcus T. Crutchfield for appointment to the City Council, for appointment by the City Council for the terms concluding December of 2023 and September of 2025, respectively. There are no term limits precluding Mr. Crutchfield from serving another consecutive term. Therefore, the interview committee recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution appointing Deborah Lane to the Area Housing Authority of the County of Ventura Board of Commissioners to fill the unscheduled vacancy with a term ending December 10th, 2023, and reappointing Marcus T. Crutchfield to fill a regular 4-year term concluding September 30th, 2025. This concludes the presentation. Staff is available for questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay,
Sorry, Mayor. I have a quick question, if I may.
sure.
Is there a rubric or anything that is used in order to figure out, who to choose? Like, do you look at, when you decide, when council members decide who to choose, is there a rubric? Like, you give more points for someone that's never been on there before, or you give more points if you do have experience, or what your background or education is? I'm just curious.
That would be dependent upon the interview panel. There are questions established for them to use, and the interview panels will determine which position that they would fall within.
Okay, but there's no rubric.
And I'd like to respond to that question if I
Would you
could.
like the floor?
If only because we were the ones that were part of that. And I'd like to respond to that question because there is not a rubric per se, but as Mr. Chen was saying, we asked all candidates the exact same questions. And we had a very vibrant discussion about what was important to us as in the selection process, et cetera. I would love to add that Mr. Marcus Crutchfield has much to offer. His life experiences helps him to be particularly vested in the work, and he's done wonderful work for 4 years. And so, and we see tremendous what he can do for 4 more years. I'd also like to commend Deborah Lane, who was selected. She brings an incredible wealth of knowledge, having served on the Area Housing Authority in Nevada previously, and yet from this area, and anxious to give back what she has, this knowledge that will definitely benefit our community. I will say that, and I'm sure that Councilmember Judge will concur, that the applicants were outstanding. But we felt that these two truly would be a tremendous asset and would represent our city well. Long answer to, is there a rubric? The answer is no, but much thought and discussion went into the selection.
Can I ask one more question, Mayor?
Yes, you may.
Is there any guidance, like guidelines in terms of if there's no rubric, even though there's a standard set of questions, are there any guidelines like we give preference to people that haven't served before, we have preference that give preference to people who do have or haven't served before, or are there any guidelines?
That's all at the discretion of the council members that are doing the interviews. If there is a policy that the council would like to establish to not select people that have already served before or what have you, that would have to be a policy that would come from the council. Otherwise, it's really in the discretion of the interviewing council members.
Thank you.
May I make a motion? Yes. I move to adopt resolution number 2021-40, appointing Deborah Lane to the AHA Board of Commissioners and reappointing Marcus T. Crutchfield to terms commencing immediately and concluding on December 10th, 2023 and September 30th, 2025, respectively.
Second.
Motion is second. Call for the vote.
Motion passes with Councilmember Luevanos abstaining. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, next on the agenda is item 3B1, presentation by Cayugas Municipal Water District regarding the pending water shortage, and Joe Deacon is here for this presentation.
Good evening, Council and Board of Directors of Waterworks District Number 8. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Tony Hoff, the General Manager Municipal Water District, our supplier of 99% of the water that's served here in Simi Valley. Joining Tony this evening from Cayugas is Raul Avila, the director serving on our board of directors that represents the city of Simi Valley, and Dan Drugan, the manager for water resources for Cayugas as well. So Tony, would you like to go ahead and provide us a presentation?
Yeah, can I share my screen? I have a PowerPoint presentation tonight.
You should have the opportunity if you just go ahead and click share screen as a panelist. There you go.
Thank you. Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
A little muffled.
All
You're
right,
a bit
I'll try to
muffled.
speak.
Much better.
Okay,
There you go.
thank you. Good evening, City Council members, Mayor Mashburn, Mayor Pro Tem Kavanaugh, and City Manager Gabler. My name is Tony Goff. I'm the General Manager of the Cayugas Municipal Water District, the wholesale water agency that distributes water to 6 of the 10 cities in Ventura County, including Simi Valley. As Joe Deacon just said, I'm joined here tonight by Cayugas's Division 1 Director, Raul Avila, who represents the City of Simi Valley, and by Dan Drugan, our Manager of Resources. And tonight I'm here to discuss Cayugas's role in water delivery to our region and to talk about the current water supply conditions and constraints, and to underscore the need for continued action in the area of water use efficiency and conservation by local water departments. So a little bit about Cayugas first. As I've said, we're a wholesale water provider. We were formed in 1953 in response to declining water quality and water quantity in the southeastern portion of Ventura County, the area that lies within the Cayugas Creek watershed. Our role was to provide supplemental water to our mission, and today our mission statement is to provide our service area with a reliable supply of regional and locally developed water in an environmentally and economically responsible manner. In the early days of Cayugas, water leaders were tasked with finding an alternate source of water for our portion of Ventura County, which led to a vote by the people in 1960 to join the Metropolitan Water District. So we are now members of the Metropolitan Water District. We sell water at Cayugas to 20 retail water agencies, including the City of Simi Valley Waterworks District 8 and Golden State Water Company. And we serve a population of about 660,000 people. As I said before, we're governed by a board of directors, which has 5 members, Division 1 being the City of Simi Valley. So this is what Division 1 looks like. You can see it encompasses all of Simi Valley. And within Simi Valley, there are 2, as you well know, there are 2 main water purveyors, the City of Simi Valley Waterworks District 8 and Golden State Water Company. So in a typical water year, Cayugas receives 100% of its water through the Metropolitan Water District's connection to the State Water Project System. State Water Project System is a series of lakes and dams, aqueducts, and pump stations that deliver Sierra snowpack through the Bay Delta into Southern California. Metropolitan actually has access to 2 major water sources through 2 different watersheds. They have the State Water Project System. They're also connected to the Colorado River system a little bit to the east. The connection to these 2 distinct watersheds has allowed people within our region in Ventura County to enjoy a high degree of reliability and economic development. This slide illustrates the Metropolitan Water District service area, and you can see, if you can see my mouse, my cursor up here in the northwest corner in blue with the highlighted pipelines in red, that's the Cayugas service area. So Metropolitan is a collective with 26 members. There's 14 cities, 11 municipal water districts, one of which is Cayugas. And they serve about half the population of Southern California, about 19 million people. They serve about 1.7 million acre feet per year. To put that into perspective, they serve 1.7 million acre feet. Cayugas serves about 100,000 acre feet per year, and Waterworks District 8 serves about 20,000 acre feet 1 acre foot is about 325,000 gallons, or enough for 2 households for 1 year. So this graphic shows the Cayugas service area shaded here in blue, with our physical infrastructure in red, our pipeline network. And now I'm going to pan a little bit to the east and show a portion of the metropolitan infrastructure. And we see the west branch of the State Water Project System, which is one of the subjects of our discussion today, and their distribution pipes. So I see pipes on my screen that are highlighted either blue or yellow. The blue pipes illustrate the State Water Project infrastructure and that infrastructure that is typically delivered to Cayugas. And in the yellow, that is the pipeline connecting to the Colorado River source through a pump station in Glendale that we can receive a small amount of Colorado River water. As drought messaging rolled out earlier this year, you may have heard that Metropolitan entered this latest drought with record storage, record volume of water in storage, which is true, but most of that storage resides to the east in Lake Mead, which we have limited access to. Met began delivering Colorado River water to Cayugas earlier this year to help just preserve those precious State Water Project supplies. They did this also back in 2014, 15, and 16. And my 32-year career here at Cayugas, it was the first time back in 2014 and 15 and 16 that this Colorado River source was needed to supplement the State Water Project supplies entering Ventura County. So before we continue on the water supply outlook, I wanted to finish my description of Cayugas' service area. We divide our service area into two main zones, the upper zone and the lower zone, basically based on pressure. The upper zone is characterized by a higher dependence on State Water Project supplies. You see 99% dependence in Simi Valley, 100% dependence in the Conejo Valley, while the downstream zone, the lower zone, is characterized by a blend of both local resources and imported water, as they have better access to recycled water and local groundwater supplies. Since there's limited access in the eastern portion of our system in the Simi Valley type area, this is something that your council may consider down the road to further development of those local sources, either alone or through partnerships with Cayugas, or perhaps with partnerships with Cayugas and Metropolitan. So let's move on now to the water supply and drought update. So this slide here illustrates the last 20 years of snowpack in the Sierras. And what you can see is during the last 10-year period, so the period in red, we only see really 2 years that we received 100% of our average snowpack. Whereas if you go back 10 years before that, you see it's a much more, while the supplies are variable, you see there are much more years that are either at or above 100% of the snowpack. And even the years that are falling short are falling just a little bit short of 100%. What we see now is a much more variable hydrology. We see higher highs and lower lows. And that's what we're dealing with right now on the State Water Project system. So drought actions this year to date, we start with the state. 3 months ago, we saw the governor declare a drought emergency in 50 of the counties in California. The six counties that Metropolitan serves water to were not within that drought declaration, and that's because of the abundant storage that our ratepayers have invested in, not only in Lake Mead, but up and down the state through different storage projects. But at that time, all Californians were called to voluntarily reduce their water usage by about 15%, judged by the baseline year of 2020. And then on August 17th, Metropolitan Water District, of which Cayugas is a member, adopt condition 2 of their water supply alert. And that condition 2 also asked for voluntary conservation by their users, and it encouraged their member agencies to call for conservation through ordinance. Similar to what your council is considering here tonight. The following day, we already had it in our hopper here at Cayugas to do the same. So on August 18th, 2021, our board of directors declared a stage 2 shortage as part of our water shortage contingency plan. And we are also asking for our residents and customers to voluntarily reduce their water usage by up to 20% compared to 2020 levels. So what's potentially in store for the next year? Looking ahead to 2022, we have a strong La Nina prediction for the next year. As those of you have followed the water issues over the last couple decades, you know that a La Nina typically calls for reduced precipitation, a lower chance of precipitation. The Department of Water Resources, DWR, has forecasted a low state water project allocation to begin the water year in December. State water project allocation is how much access the contractors like Metropolitan have to state water project supplies in any given year. It's basically your budget that you begin the year with. And they forecast a budget all the way down to potentially 0% state water project supplies coming in 2022, which would mean that the metropolitan service area that's reliant on imported water would be heavily reliant on Colorado River supplies. So we also might see a mandatory conservation announcement by the governor in the next few months. This is something that happened during the last drought cycle with Governor Jerry Brown, requiring 25% reduction in water use. This was the first time it's ever happened in the state of California. And we're poised to be on the verge of that once again this year, if not in 2021, perhaps in 2022. And so we're working very closely with Metropolitan and all the other state water project contractors, sharpening our pencils and trying to look more closely at our local supplies to see what we can do. So they asked, what more can we do in 2021 and 2022? We've met with our 20 retail agencies, including the staff here at Waterworks District 8. We're asking folks to look at their local resources, if not the projects they have in place right now, projects that are close, maybe shovel-ready projects, look at if we can get increased funding for those types of projects. We have a well field at Moore Park that we operated pretty heavily around 2007, 8, and 9, and 10 during a drought cycle then. We typically only operate that well field these days for emergencies, but this may be enough of emergency to warrant operation of that well field at this time. We're looking at additional water use efficiency measures and conservation actions. The folks in the county are activating their water shortage contingency plans. We're stepping up our drought messaging, as we're going to see later in this presentation, and increased rebate programs. And once again, working very closely with Metropolitan on mandatory conservation. And if that was the case, we would all have to and want to work together to plan for these cutbacks. So local actions that we're taking. The city of Simi Valley has been excellent, a leader and a model for implementing water use efficiency measures. This is from your staff report. See just the actions that have been taken in 2021 alone. On the right, you see illustrations of the city of Simi's participation in the turf rebate program along Alamo Drive there. I believe that's in front of the DMV. You've seen conversion of non-functional turf to drought tolerant landscaping. Also, the participation in the Simi Welcome Corner. This was a partnership with Metropolitan and Cayugas to convert the Simi Welcome Corner from a vast lawn that no one was using to a more drought tolerant and Southern California friendly landscaping. Cayugas, their board took more action on August 18th than our resolution. They also chose at that time to add $1 per square foot to Metropolitan's turf rebate program. So Metropolitan has a turf rebate program where they'll compensate homeowners, eligible homeowners and residences and businesses $2 per square foot to remove the turf and replace it with something more drought tolerant. Cayugas, as I said, added $1 to that incentive. So that incentive in our service area is now up to $3 per square foot, which, as I understand it, the city of Simi Valley has a lot of orders in on that program. We'll get to that a little bit later. We're also stepping up our marketing materials. We've dusted off the Lose the Lawn campaign from 2014 and upgraded it to you lose the lawn, you gain a garden. So trying to convert, not just taking something away, but you gain something. You can remove the lawn at your home or your residence or your business and gain a beautiful garden like the ones displayed here. We have the Cayugas logo on these materials, but these materials can be branded by the local retailers. Water agencies can put their logos on there. And we're going to be very aggressive pushing this turf rebate program at the retail agency and the retail level, including direct mailers to residential customers, sending postcards out, trying to encourage the end users to participate in a program like this that makes permanent lifestyle changes to the way you use water, just further underscoring that water use efficiency in our service area. Here's a list of the Simi Valley turf replacement projects in the hopper. We got up to $600,000 in turf rebate projects pending. And so with that, Cayugas is here to just support the staff recommendation of a stage 2 shortage and to moving to 2 days of irrigation in the winter and 3 days of summer watering. And we commend the city for their leadership and consideration of this item. I wanted to point out some opportunities for the council members. Metropolitan has infrastructure inspection trips that they take twice a year to both of those watersheds, a trip up to Northern California on the State Water Project system to tour and inspect that system, and another trip on the Colorado River system, so an inspection trip there. Those are expected to resume again in 2022, and you should look for invitations. It's our practice to invite the local city council members on those tours and to provide further education on what we do here in our service area. If you're interested in seeing a local supply project from inception, Las Virgenes Municipal Water District, our neighbor to the east, our sister water agency, and another metropolitan member agency is undergoing a project right now called the Pure Water Project, where they're converting their recycled water into indirect potable reuse with surface water augmentation. They have a very nice pilot facility in the Calabasas area. I would encourage any council members who are interested in touring a facility like that to reach out to Dan Drugan on our staff. And then Cayugas is always available for tours at our local facilities. Once again, if anybody is interested, you can work with your staff, reach out to Dan Drugan, and we can provide tours of Cayugas facilities. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the council.
Questions? Okay, I'll start. I have a question. You indicated bringing water from the well in Moore Park. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's under consideration. It has to be, we haven't brought that before our board of directors, and there are other water supply opportunities that we would take before that. But it's a way that we're trying to think out of the box for this drought cycle.
Okay, and that in a sense is groundwater, correct?
That's correct. That's groundwater.
Okay, where I'm going with that is we oftentimes get questions about the safety of the groundwater in Simi Valley. And, it's easy to point out that most of our water is not groundwater. And when it comes time that you may take groundwater, how will we get notified of the inspection process and what you do to assure that the water is safe?
That's a good question. We can work very closely with City of Simi staff. We do a full suite of Title 22 analysis. We analyze our water sources for over 200 constituents. We wouldn't any detections of anything, any carcinogens, anything above the maximum contaminant level would not be served to the public. The aquifer that we store water in the Las Posas Valley is heavily used. It's used for potable water service every day by Ventura County Water Works District 1, District 19, and several other potable water purveyors out in that area.
Yeah, and I understand that and would hope that maybe what we could do is something where we're being extremely transparent and have those records available either on the city's website or on yours. Then that way we can direct the people to those websites and they can see the results of those tests. It's just strictly a transparency issue.
Yeah, I appreciate the comment, and transparency is something we work very hard at here at Cayugas, so we would work with your staff to provide that information.
Great, thank you. Elaine.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just have a question about understanding the stage 2 water shortage. I understand that that there's a desire to limit it 20% below 2020 levels, I believe, is what is meant by the stage 2 water shortage statement. Is there, I don't say teeth, is there some kind of a penalty if the city or area doesn't comply? Obviously, this is right now was recommended for various reasons that have been stated, but what is the consequence, I guess, for not complying?
Yeah, I'm going to defer this one to Dan Drugan. I'll weigh in initially. This is a voluntary effort right now. I would say, I'm maybe speaking out of turn. Like I said, I'll defer to Dan Drugan, who's our water resource specialist. I would say that the teeth would be moving to mandatory. So anything we could do voluntarily to satisfy the governor's need for reduction would not lead us to mandatory cutbacks. Dan, do you have more to add?
I think that was perfect. The only thing I would add is that water agencies do have to report to the State Water Board their water usage every month. And so they're able to track that. And eventually there may be more teeth like Tony Goff is talking about right now in terms of when mandatory does come. And right now the State Board is tracking, what cities, what water agencies are complying with this voluntary request and whether or not that gives them the backing to move to mandatory, which we believe might be coming soon.
Thank you. And I guess part of the reason I'm asking this question is I'm holding in front of me actually something I received as a customer of Golden State, which, for instance, says, which talks about the stage 2 reductions, et cetera. It says all usage in excess of the customer's allocation will be charged at the regular rate plus a drought emergency surcharge as follows. So I guess Golden State is choosing this drought emergency surcharge just as an inducement, is that correct? But it's not coming from the water providers per se. Is that fair to say? This is
correct.
This is a decision
Your
Golden State.
Your assessment of that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's our understanding as well, is that, and I just want to throw in, when you say stage 2 water supply shortage, that is not a universal term. Every water provider has characterized and defined what their stages of water supply shortages are. So ours isn't exactly lined up with Cayugas's.
Gotcha.
And ours isn't lined up with Golden State's either.
Okay.
So it's unique provider by provider. And that 20% kind of made me think that sounds like Golden State's. But yeah, I do understand that there are, to me, it's unclear. We might want to have Golden State respond to that. I'm not clear whether there is a mandate under this 20% reduction. I've
Or with
read some things indicate they're calling for voluntary actions, and I know that they've put out notice that there's mandates.
So their
So-
interpretation may just be that it's mandatory, but
Yeah,
it's there, okay.
yeah.
So-
My reading of their rule, they publish their rule on their site. My reading of their rule says this is a voluntary call for action.
But they're,
So I'm a
yeah.
little confused.
So in fairness to Golden State, we should invite them to come in and make their presentation also, rather than us or Colegas trying to answer questions that should be directed towards them.
I sure would stop sweating if we did that, yes. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Lou Evanos.
Thank you, Mayor. I have several questions. The first one is, would we, thank you for, acknowledging all the work that our staff has done, our city staff has done to acknowledge the water shortage. This has been something that I've been talking about for a long time, that there is a fresh water shortage globally and locally as well. Would it help if we changed our tiers? Because if that's something that Golden State Water is doing, is that something that we should consider as well? Because we know that when there is a shortage of supply and the cost increases, that people are more likely to respond if it's voluntary versus mandatory. When there is bite, as Councilwoman Lister stated, when there are consequences to the lack of inaction, we see that people respond more quickly. So what is the timeline between it being voluntary versus mandatory? That's my question.
Well, we might be getting ahead of ourselves, so I'll wait till our discussion item, talk about the mandates under what we're proposing to you tonight. But if you're asking, is our mandates providing more encouragement if there's a cost element? I would agree with you.
Okay.
That mandates that include an increase in the cost of service do provide stronger incentives to customers to reduce. I think in general, I would agree with your statement.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the question. I don't know if you can answer it now or if we have to reserve it for when we talk about it at 8B, but is there a possibility that if we changed our water tiers to more reflect water usage, that to address the water shortage issues and make them more equitable, would that be an incentive for people to be more cautious about how much water they use?
I would say that that's a possibility, yes.
Okay. And last question. What are we doing with, because I recall as a child many years ago, talking about the drought and how much water was used, and this was something that was done in, and I'm glad that our city staff, and thank you, Joe and Brian, all the city staff who do all the water conservation techniques and at the fairs and everything and in the community, but do we do this in our schools? Because that was something that I got in my classroom. I remember they came and spoke to us at the school, right, and talked about this is how much water you waste when you leave the water running, right, while you brush your teeth. This is how much water you waste when you wait for the water to turn hot while you're taking a shower. And so there was this consciousness of how much water you're using in those everyday activities. Is that something that we can collaborate with the school so that we can bring more awareness about? Is that possible?
Yes, it is. We can work with the schools to help them put this as a place in their curriculum.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Excuse me, Elaine, didn't have my speaker on.
That I didn't. Thank you, Mayor. Tony, thank you. I wanted to thank you for this. Actually, it was a very educational presentation, and it was very helpful for me to visually see some of what we've been reading and hearing about. And I was particularly taken by your chart showing that our current 10 years versus, or the most recent 10 years, water storage versus the previous 10 years, and the concern about this going into La Nina year, et cetera. Obviously, there's much to be concerned about right now. And so I guess my real question is, let's say this continues. Are you actively developing other or alternative water sources like ocean desalination plants, et cetera? What is being done specifically to try to, or it's been explored that might increase those water storage areas? Obviously, we're being told to build more homes, which means more water usage, et cetera. How are we going to get more water resources, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, what we're doing here at Cayugas, we're just about wrapping up a water supply alternative study. The focus of our water supply alternative study was emergency outage supplies, but we analyzed over 100 new water supply projects, and we're going through the process of sorting those projects and finding the low-hanging fruit, the projects that are the most worth pursuing. Local recycled water projects, groundwater projects, things like that, storage in different parts of the county. So while the focus of the water supply alternative study was emergency outages, you still find ongoing routine sources when you look at a study like that. So we're very aggressively looking at alternative water supplies. What we're trying to do is the hydrology we're seeing is changing. We built our infrastructure 60 years ago to match hydrology that was 60 years ago. We're trying to match the infrastructure of the future to the hydrology of the future.
And will those results, which is good to know, this surveying that you're doing right now, when likely will those results be shared? And you're going to come back and give us a presentation 6 months and tell us this is what we need to be doing?
I can do that. I can come back in 6 months and tell you what we've found. We are on about the last, I think, 3 projects. Once we've consolidated all the projects and compiled all the reports, we'll bring them before our board of directors and workshop that with our board as your staff would do with your council. And it's time for them to make decisions on what Cayugas will look like in 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now, and what water supply projects they want to pursue. So yeah, we can do that.
Excellent. Thank you.
I have another question for you. If a constant question we get as council members is, why are we still building when we have no water to speak of? I know I don't mean that exactly, no water, but very limited, and it seems like we're heading in a very low water situation. And so how do you answer that question? Why do you issue will serve letters when you're cutting back water delivery based on the drought? And
well,
is there a point that a benchmark that you have that you would say, okay, at this point we can no longer issue will serve letters?
So at Cayugas, we don't interact directly with the public. We're the water agency that stands behind your water agency. The will serve letters and things of that nature are issued by either Waterworks District 8 or by Golden State Water Company. But I will say generally speaking, water consumption has gone down per capita over the last 20 years. We're serving less water to more people than we ever have. So we've gotten smarter with the way we use water. The public has become more educated. As one of your council members mentioned, growing up, learning about water savings in school has had an effect. And the amount of water that I said our water cells are around 100,000 acre feet. That's like a 30-year average. Our water cells now are around 85, 90,000 acre feet, but in 2007, they were about 120,000 acre feet. And that's with increased population. So population is understanding this. And then the state of California is coming out with water efficiency measures. Water conservation as a way of life is a standard that's going to drive water consumption down. So we're asking more and more of water consumers to be more water use efficient and to conserve more while the population grows.
So that conservation is working.
Yes, it is working. That's I think I read in your staff report that using the 2020 year as the baseline is a little bit of a struggle, because 2020 we had already gone through the last drought and tightened our belts a lot in 2020.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Councilmember Luevanos.
I have 2 more questions, if I may. Thank you, Mayor. How much of a role does climate change have in these extreme shifts of availability of the snowpack. We saw that it was extremely high and then extremely low in the past 10 years. So how much of a role or an impact does climate change have in those shifts?
I think climate change has a significant role. We see hydrology today that we have never seen before. As I said, higher highs, lower lows. We go from flood to drought more quickly than before. We get flashier precipitation events where you would get rainfall over a longer period where you could capture it. It all falls in a shorter period. You might get the same amount of rainfall, but in a much shorter time period.
Thank you. And my second question is the water that you mentioned, getting well water from Moore Park, will that be tested for radionuclides and perchlorates? And what is the process that you would use to test for those? As you know,
Sure,
we have.
yeah, we test, yes, we do a full suite of radionuclides. We test for perchlorate. We test for, like I said, over 200 analytes. We use a third-party contract lab, so that you're not having to hear directly from Cayugas that our water is safe. We contract that out to a certified laboratory, and all those results go into the state database. They're analyzed by the Division of Drinking Water, who we partner with. The Division of Drinking Water has to bless your source and say it's okay to drink, and yes, but we do a thorough suite of analysis on all our water sources.
And would you? I'm
Furthermore,
sorry.
that data that's reported to the Department of Drinking Water is posted routinely, and there's a very large archive of that data that is open to the public for review.
That was my next question. Thank you for answering that, Mr. Deacon.
As Joe said, we provide that data to the public each year in a annual consumer confidence report as well.
And that includes what percentage of the water is well water that's being used?
0 right now.
Okay, but in the future, if you were to use well water, you would include, and that information would be accessible to the public, of what percentage of that water that's being used is well water. Yes?
That's correct. That's great. You have to, yes, you're right, council member. You have to report the percent of each supply.
And by
I
the
thought you were
way,
asking how much we were serving.
Waterworks District 8 routinely uses well water as a very small supplement to our water source, but we do report that as well. Similar to Cayugas's consumer confidence report, we publish one of those as well.
So a member of the public would be able to look up the batch of water and what percentage was
Yes,
well
it's posted on
water.
our website.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay, seeing no more questions, thank you very much for the presentation. I'm sure we'll have more
Thank you for
questions.
your time.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, next on the agenda is item 3C1, presentation by Youth Council member Ella McCrossan on behalf of the Youth Council.
All right. Hello, everybody. Am I good? All right. Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and members of the City Council. My name is Ella McCrossan, and I'm a sophomore at Royal High School. This is my 3rd year serving on the Simi Valley Youth Council, and my first time serving as secretary. Thank you all for having me tonight. I will be updating you on Youth Council's last 2 meetings, as well as letting you know about our upcoming activities. At our meeting on September 21st, we had a packed agenda. We continue to discuss our involvement in the 2nd annual Community Reads program, organized by the Simi Valley Public Library, and began to discuss our plans for a 2021 Stop Bullying Month campaign for October. A variety of ideas were shared for both topics, but none were finalized on that day. We also talked about the Youth Council Suicide Prevention Month campaign, which consisted of our very successful rock painting night, as well as posts to our @Simi Valley Youth Council Instagram account regarding suicide prevention and providing information about available resources. Our members then had some fun debating the colors for our polo shirts this year. We settled on navy blue, which I personally am very excited for. Our final discussion for the night was deciding a discussion topic for the 2022 Youth Town Hall. All Youth Council members gave input after having asked their peers for opinions. A variety of topics regarding youth in Simi Valley were discussed, but one topic kept reappearing: mental health. The main discussion topic for the Simi Valley Youth Council Town Hall of in 2022 will be mental health, with a focus on bouncing back or resilience after the pandemic, social media and technology's impact on mental health, and schools' expectations and pressures. The meeting ended on a high note with a team building activity. The next time we saw each other's beautiful faces was last Tuesday, October 5th. We made a lot of decisions at this meeting. First, we circled back to two of our longer running discussions: our project for the second annual Community Reads program and our plan for the 2021 Stop Bullying campaign. You'll be happy to hear that we did make final decisions for both of these topics. For the second annual Community Reads program, we decided on a book to action project with the theme Rising Strong, a path through hardship. We plan on having a community art project in which members of the community can decorate paper tiles relating to the theme, with the intention being to put all the tiles together at the end to create one meaningful art piece. The art piece will be displayed at the Simi Valley Public Library, as well as on the Cultural Arts Center's virtual art gallery. We also plan on asking members of the community, as well as youth council members, to film short videos of themselves sharing their relation to the theme, all to be put together into a video montage. For Stop Bullying Month, although we don't have our plan fully finalized, we did make the final decision to have anti-bullying pledges at our schools and at our booth at the Simi Valley Street Fair and City Expo. I'm hopeful that these projects will be engaging and impactful for our community. Another thing to look forward to from the Youth Council in October is our plan for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We will be wearing pink to our October 19th meeting and will use our Instagram account to educate about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This meeting was a very important one because it was also when we began discussing our work plan for the 2021 to 2022 Youth Council term. Youth Council members brainstormed all the issues impacting youth and proceeded with a dot vote on those issues. The work plan will be finalized at a later meeting, keeping in mind the results from the dot vote at the October 5th meeting. With that, the meeting came to an end, but our work didn't. We have some more exciting plans coming up that you all should look out for. In front of you tonight, you should see some inspirational rocks that were painted at our rock painting night. We will be hiding the rest of these rocks around the city. If you find an inspirational rock, post it and tag at Simi Valley Youth Council on Instagram for the chance to win a gift card, so keep an eye out. I'd also like to invite you all to stop by Youth Council's booth at the Simi Valley Street Fair and City Expo to sign our anti-bullying pledge, get information about our Book to Action project for the second annual Community Reads program, and to see our splashes of pink for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. If you haven't already, please follow us at Simi Valley Youth Council on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to stay updated on our upcoming activities, as well as to see the original content from our hardworking social media committee. Thank you all so much for your support, and thank you once again to Mayor Mashburn and the City Council members for having me tonight. I would love to answer any questions you may have. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you, Ella. Is there any question? Yes, there is. Elaine.
I'm sorry, don't have a question, but I think Ella is being modest. You need to understand, not only is she secretary, she's also the social media guru for the Youth Council. And so her asking us to follow, et cetera, she's probably single-handedly doubled or tripled the social media presence of the Youth Council. So thank you, Ella. And I will tell you that I am loving my rock that says be happy. It is amazing. So thank you for all those that were participated. That was it, though. Thanks, Ella.
Thank you. Next item.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, there are no items this evening under item 4, public hearings. And the next item on the agenda is item 5, public statements. This is a time for public statements on all items other than public hearings, appointments, and informational reports. All comments submitted by email have already been provided to the City Council. However, they will not be read by the City Clerk this evening. All persons who are signed on to Zoom to speak for this public statement, item 5, will be called on to speak for a period of no more than 3 minutes each. Persons addressing the City Council are requested to state their name and community of residence for the record. Mr. Mayor, unless you have any comments, we will begin public statements.
No comments. Ready for the first speaker.
Our first speaker this evening is Anil. Anil, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Kavanaugh, and other council members. My name is Anil Garg, and I live on 655 Old Stone Place, Simi Valley. And I would like to talk about an entity that is providing free meals to families in Simi Valley. It is called Seva Pantry, which is a part of Seva International. Seva in Sanskrit means service. This group of volunteers provide meals on a weekly basis at Sinaloa Junior High on Royal Avenue. I have been working with this group for a long time in order to assist them in finding a place from which they can serve the food. And at this point, I'd like to defer the rest of my time to Amar Nadik, who is running the program, and he can give you more specific details. But before I finish, I would like to invite the City Council members to come and visit the event on any Saturday at 3 p.m. and it goes up till 5:30 p.m. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about this valuable service to the citizens of Simi Valley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker this evening is Amar Nadig. Mr. Nadig,
Good
go ahead and
evening.
unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is Amar Nadig, and thank you, Anilji, for offering me to speak here. Thank you, Mayor Mashburn, Mayor Pro Tem Kavanaugh, members of the council, for the opportunity to present the proposal for a Seva food pantry in Simi Valley. I would like to lead this with a presentation for a moment, but I did want to start with some pictures. If you can see your screens, I'm sharing mine now. You will see a robust group of youth who are participating in this program. They are, I'm sorry, my computer is a little slower than usual, but my apologies. 1 second. Yes, there you go. I think the computer came back. Anyhow, so my apologies there. It looks like my computer has an issue there. But what I'll do is I'll start with the presentation and go right into it. Seva International is a humanitarian nonprofit service organization with about 40 chapters in 40 different cities and has presence in about 14 countries. We have been called upon by various organizations. But like I said, it is a disaster recovery. We do humanitarian service. Organizations like FEMA had called upon us as recently as during the Hurricane Ida in August 2021. Food distribution is not new to us. Almost every one of our chapters ran a food distribution program in their cities last year when COVID was at its peak. Most of these programs were designed to end at the end of the year when the pandemic started to get into control. So sometime around last year, 2020. President Joe Biden recently recognized us for our contribution during the month of action for enabling the availability of vaccines in various food drives of ours. Few of our programs are a little different. We recently started a soup kitchen in Santa Clara for the homeless and the senior citizens with grants offered by the city and the city of Santa Clara and San Jose. The Seva team in Simi Valley is interested in setting up a brick and mortar store in Simi Valley. We did not, when we started very much with a pop-up, which is basically a food drive, food distribution through a pop-up where people drive through. Our goal was to provide healthy food options to families that are less fortunate. It's staffed entirely, this is different. It's staffed entirely by high school students and provides with a platform for them to volunteer. We started by running a pilot to study the viability, to test the viability of our store, the concept of a store. We involved different agencies in turn to help us build a sustainable program. We established the whole idea is to establish a brick and mortar store that operates every day of the week for a few hours every day. Our pilot program came around this way. We serve around 200 families every Saturday. Sometimes it goes up to 250, but the impact is we in turn serve them food for an entire week. And there are thousands of individuals. When you look at the family sizes and the individuals in the families, we have consistently been around the 1,000 mark when it comes to individuals. So we are serving over 30 meals multiplied by 1,000. So that's how much food we are distributing. We ran this program for about 6 months, and we feel very confident that Simi Valley has a small pocket where there is a need for where there are people who are being underserved. And either they are senior citizens, or they are unemployed currently, or they are there's a single earner who has a very large family. It has been a revolving door. When we look at the data that we have collected so far, we find that people get employed, they leave the program, they don't come anymore, and then new ones join. So for every 5 who leave, a couple join every week. But that's how we found. We also started with a handful of volunteers, student volunteers, and now we are up to 60. And we have 8 participating high schools from Ventura County. We have all the way from Thousand Oaks to Santa Susana, all the schools in between. Then I wanted to share a few pictures, but here's what we do. We typically prepare for the program, we package the food, and the food is typically some fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, some eggs, milk, and cheeses if they're available. And I'll go through the list in a little bit. The goal of this program is to basically provide an opportunity for high school volunteers to understand social problems, get connected to
Mr.
them.
Amar,
Yes.
I have to interrupt you. I gave you Emil's time and your time, but I do want to make it very clear, you're welcome to come back anytime and complete your presentation or repeat it. Sure. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next speaker this evening is Matt Doros. Mr. Doros, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, can you see me?
We can see your avatar image.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. Anyway, I am here. I haven't talked to you guys in about a year, and I came here tonight because I wanted to remind everybody that I am working with a few people to try and get some energy going behind the motorhome RV issue. And I really have had a lot of success. I've talked to a lot of good people, and I think we've made a lot of headway. One of the things that I just wanted to bring up is that because the existing rules are still being studied, and a little background, this began around 4 years ago when the city was put on hiatus, or put the rules on hiatus, and basically, sorry, that's my timer telling me my 3 minutes are up, so I guess I'll have to rely on you to tell me when I'm done. In any event, let me fast forward a little bit to January of 2020. January 22nd was the last time we had a real amount of traction on the issue. I went to the City Council Planning Commission. I showed some photographs of what I live with and situations that I believe are really problematic for the city. And one of them alarmed one of the commissioners to the extent that he formed a subcommittee. I don't know how far they got, but then we got, as everybody knows, wrapped up or enveloped in COVID. So this has sort of taken a back step, but I think we're ready to start getting this rolling again. One of the commissioners, as I think I just said, was alarmed enough to form a subcommittee to review the situation. The conversation, by the way, it's available on the city's website. Just look for the January 22nd, 2020 meeting, and just look around. It's actually at the 3-hour point. It was a long meeting that evening. But the city really needs to work out a strategy that'll put citizen safety first. I frequently observe some motorhomes and driveways that are hanging out to the curb or to the sidewalk, certainly to the sidewalk where it's in a public pedestrian area. This flies in the face of the setback code, which clearly states that nothing over 3 feet tall is permitted to extend within 20 feet of the sidewalk or other general right of way. I suspect the law exists because of the need for safety and
Mr. Dorsch,
aesthetics.
you'll need to wrap it up.
Okay, I will. Okay, then I'll probably bring this issue to a closure at the next meeting. And I thank everybody who's been involved in this, and have a good night. I'm glad we're wrapping up COVID.
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker this evening is Brandy. Brandy, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, okay. Hello, good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, and staff. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Brandy Paul, and I live in District 4. I've been a resident of Simi Valley for 7 years. I see that under new business, item 8A, the council is beginning discussion to possibly amend the process with which planning commissioners get appointed. I want to applaud the city for the simple act of examining legacy procedures and giving them a look over to see if they're still relevant today. It's the healthy cities like Simi Valley that will do this type of internal scrutiny. In reading the staff report and from my knowledge of the city and of the planning commission decisions that have been made, I would assume that this council will likely leave the commission as it is because we've had great results in the managed growth of the city. The most interesting point to me in the staff report was the question on whether the newly appointed planning commissioner should be from the district of the council person nominating them. It is interesting in 2 ways. First, districts are a new thing for Simi, and at least some of the current commissioners don't live in their council person's district. Would they need to be removed and replaced? And secondly, District 4 and District 2 have never been elected. So the council person for those districts will have to abide by the rules. Sorry, my dog. Will have to abide by the rules that other council members did not. This would be a disadvantage to those council people who might be nominating a planning commissioner because they would be of like mind on issues. To make theirs at large and others appointed makes District 2 and District 4 at a possible disadvantage. The report shows that many other cities handle these appointments in the same way that Simi does now. That doesn't necessarily mean it's right, but it does mean that it's a common way of making these appointments. Regardless of the outcome, I'm extremely pleased that the City Council and the mayor in particular wants to look at this system as well as other legacy systems to make sure we are working in the best interest of the citizens of Simi Valley. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker this evening is Stacy V. Stacy, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Hello, my name is Stacy Vanderschaff and I am a resident of Simi Valley. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to the City Council for your continued efforts to help restaurants, which in the city of Simi Valley, I'm sure you are aware, many of them are small businesses, survive during the continued COVID restrictions. I know many of the restaurants in Simi Valley relied on and to a certain extent continue to rely on outdoor dining during the past 2 years in order to stay in business. Many of these restaurants are still struggling to stay afloat. So I'm really glad that the City Council has recognized their burdens and is doing what you can to help them out. I also wanted to thank you for not imitating other cities in California and other parts of the country in mandating vaccines for city employees. Simi Valley city employees are intelligent people who are capable of making this decision for themselves. So thank you very much for respecting their ability to do so. Also, on another note, I hope that the city has provided assistance to any employees who do wish to receive the vaccine. Thank you for your time. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you.
We have no other speakers with their hands raised, although we have Rocky Rhodes in the waiting room if Mr. Rhodes would like to speak now or if he wants to wait until a later item. Mr. Rhodes, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself? Mr. Rhodes, do you want to unmute yourself?
I'm sorry, I was just watching the meeting. I actually had nothing to say this evening, but it's been an informative one.
Thank you very much.
Okay, this time, anybody have any comments regarding the public statements? We'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a quick comment on our first speaker, Anil Garg, who referenced us over to Amar Nadik about the Siwa Pantry. Anil didn't introduce himself as well as he probably could have. He's a longtime Rotarian here in Simi Valley, past district governor, and has also led multiple immunization trips to India to eradicate polio. So we're very proud to have him in our community. And I just wanted to say thank you to him for introducing Amar Nadik, and I'm interested in learning more on the Siwa Pantry. I did see it last Saturday as I was driving by. They were out there working. So I'll be interested in hearing more about that. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Lou Evanos.
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to thank Mr. Garg and Mr. Nadik for running the Siwa Food Pantry, bringing that volunteer opportunity and supporting our families who are still struggling with access to fresh food, and it is more expensive to eat healthy. And so I really thank you for doing the service to the community. I wanted to make sure that at some point, and if it's not now, then at 9B, I will ask for Mr. Doros's issue about the motorhome RV issue. We have delayed this issue long enough, and I would like to know the exact date when this is coming back. I too have the same security concerns and safety concerns, as do many of our residents that Mr. Doros have, and I want to make sure that we do not delay in addressing the RV issue. I wanted to thank Ms. Brandy Kalb and Stacy V for just engaging with your local democracy, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Councilmember Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make sure that Anil's guest is invited back to give a full presentation to the council earlier in the meetings, like we had today with the Water District. Maybe staff could reach out to him, get that set up.
Yeah, and I too, maybe we can go through the Ms. Kavanaugh to make sure that they understand that it was just a ruling. We'd like to hear the full presentation.
I'll contact Anil
They
tomorrow.
can make just a special presentation like Councilmember Judge said. I think that'd be great.
I think they enjoy doing that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, next on the agenda is item 6, the consent calendar, and there are no resolutions for your consideration this evening.
Okay, consent calendar. Any questions?
I would like to have some questions on item number 3.
Number what?
Number 3?
3? Okay.
And Mayor, I have a question on item number 2.
Number what?
2.
2? Okay. All right, we'll start with, let's go ahead and address 2.
I just have a quick question, and hopefully Mr. Tony can answer this question. This is a huge additional expense, $150,000 in addition. Did we not budget for this, or did we, what happened exactly that is the need for us to, approve an additional $150,000 for this project?
Yeah, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, so all of the funds for this project have been budgeted for. Actually, we wish we had hired this consultant earlier in the process to help us, but we initially did a contract that was under $100,000 or at the $100,000 limit, which is City Manager Authority. We are continuing to use them. We're about to go live with the HR payroll effort, and that's what they're helping us with, and they'll help us with post-go live as well. So we're anticipating, we probably won't even spend $150,000, but we wanted to put in an amount so that we can retain their services through the end of the project.
Okay, so the reason why you need an additional $150,000 is because that's beyond the city manager's authority,
Correct.
and that's why you come to us. Okay, but it's already in the budget,
Correct.
the $250,000 amount total.
Correct. We have a separate ERP project fund.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted clarification on that. Thank you.
Okay, number 3.
Thank you. Just some questions about basically $500,000 grant or funds to be used for, as I understand it, this LA Avenue special planning, basically. And my question, it's being awarded to Gruen, who was responsible in the early 2000s for the LA Avenue streetscape design plan. Can you just first quickly elaborate what was that design plan, just so I understand? Are we talking about all of the landscaping down LA Avenue? Is that what that was, first of all?
That's correct.
Okay.
It was done over a decade ago.
Okay. And the real question I have, well, first of all, the boundaries that are going to be in this special plan, maybe I missed it. Are they exactly prescribed in this proposal? Was it laid out exactly, the geography? I didn't see it. Maybe I missed it.
The geography is actually included in the RFP. And within the RFP, it did call out along, I would say, south of the freeway along Tapple Street, and it jogs along to the east toward Metrolink Station. So that is one of the areas. And the other areas would be along Los Angeles Avenue, going from the post office, on the west end post office, all the way to Erringer. So that's basically the
Okay,
areas
so that was in the
we're looking
RFP, but not necessarily in those two specific areas? Are they?
Those two areas were identified in the RFP and were, I believe, in the application to HCD for this money that we identified. Those are
Okay.
the study areas that we wanted to look at as a potential for creating a specific plan that would guide future developments in this area, look at different configurations, introducing housing, all those things would come into play. And the council will be part of that process as we step through it.
I understand. I just want to know where that was prescribed, and I appreciate that. And maybe because it's District 3 area, specifically LA Avenue, that I'm particularly want to be aware. Page 19 of the report says, higher density housing is the emphasis, but we'll be looking at commercial, economics, retail, et cetera. My question is, this higher density housing emphasis, is that coming from the general housing plan update that we haven't approved yet, or is this something totally separate? This is anticipated more density. I mean, where are we getting those numbers?
Actually, I think it's a little bit of both. It is in the housing element to add housing into that area.
Which we haven't approved yet, but
we haven't approved yet.
Okay.
So it is part of that. And this study hasn't even started yet, so
Right.
it's always time for change. The other part of it, when you're at no housing, any housing is higher density. So I think in that regard, we're looking at introducing housing into these areas that would likely be a higher density than residential moderate, which are generally single-family detached homes or things like that.
So theoretically, this might take us beyond the housing element update we're doing right now, but would take us into the next housing element.
It's definitely in the next housing element.
But
This
not
is
this update that we're looking at necessarily. Maybe a
all
bit
of the
it.
work we're doing today is going to end up being in the next. Oh well, no. Let me take it back. I'm thinking Rana. I'm sorry. the current housing element that's being proposed that you will see at the next meeting on October 25th, will have housing designated in these areas.
Okay, so, and I guess that's my question, because that was my understanding. Are we asking Gruen then to take the figures from that, or are we saying, take those and maybe play with more? Or I just want to understand what direction we're giving here.
Gruen will be adjusted depending upon what the council does with the housing element.
So that housing element should restrict in some way what they're going to provide.
That housing element, what the council's ended decision on the housing element will guide what Gruen does in this area.
Okay. 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 Let me ask one final question. I had a phone call today from a constituent very concerned about some of our biking path updates that we need. Specific LA Avenue may well be in this area. And I said, funny you should mention this, where this is in the consent calendar tonight. I know as I read through this, there's supposed to be public meetings that they're supposed to tap and have. And so my question is, how and when does this start, and how will they be noticed so this gentleman can be an active part of it?
So kickoff will be immediately after we approve and adopt the contract.
And should I have him call you, or?
Yes.
Okay.
My phone number is 805-583-6773.
Perfect, okay. Thank you, that was it. Thanks, Eric.
Mayor, I have a quick question on consent item 3, if I may.
Okay.
Thank you. Will the new laws, like SB 9 that was just passed, be taken into account once this contract is approved, if it is approved? SB 9, the law that allows for, up to 4 plexes to be built on single-family residences, will that be taken into account should this be approved?
I think SB 9 is going to be driving the housing element, which will then drive this contract.
Okay, I just want to make sure, and there is flexibility in terms of addressing new legislation that is being passed statewide in this contract, yes?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need to know. Mayor, I move to approve consent calendar items 1 through 3.
Second?
Okay, motion and second, call for the vote.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, next on the agenda is item 7A, second reading of ordinance number 1327, approving Simi Valley Municipal Code Amendment Z-S-2021-0006, amending portions of Title IX of the Simi Valley Municipal Code to establish regulations for outdoor dining standards for restaurants, and a determination that the amendments are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. The reading of the ordinance is as follows. Ordinance number 1327, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Simi Valley for Z-S-2021-0006, amending portions of Title IX of the Simi Valley Municipal Code to establish regulations for outdoor dining standards for restaurants, and a determination that the amendments are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and Naren Gunasekera is available for questions.
Any questions?
May I make a motion?
Sure.
I move to adopt ordinance number 1327.
A second?
Motion and second, call for the vote.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, next on the agenda is item 7B, second reading of ordinance number 1328, amending portions of Title IX of the Simi Valley Municipal Code and West End Specific Plan and the Brandeis Bardeen Institute Specific Plan to modify regulations for operating alcoholic beverage manufacturing facilities, breweries, microbreweries, wineries, and distilleries, and a determination that the amendments are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. The reading of the ordinance is as follows. Ordinance number 1328, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Simi Valley for Z-S-745, amending portions of Title IX of the Simi Valley Municipal Code and amendments to the West End Specific Plan, SP-S-7, Amendment Number 29, SP-S-2021-0001, and Brandeis Bardine Institute Specific Plan, SP-S-9, Amendment Number 7, SP-S-2021-0002, to modify regulations for operating alcoholic beverage manufacturing facilities, breweries, microbreweries, wineries, and distilleries, and to provide options for on-site tasting and retail sales, and a determination that the amendments are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, as amended, and Jennifer Santos is available for questions.
Any questions? Any motions?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 1328 as amended.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is second, call for the vote.
Motion passes with Councilmember Litzter voting no. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, the next item on the agenda is item 8A, request for direction on procedures for filling future Planning Commission vacancies, and Sean Gibson is here for this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn. Let me just get this screen started.
Evening.
Okay, so hopefully everyone on Zoom can see my screen. Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and members of the City Council. The City Council had previously directed staff to agendize a discussion to provide options, including code amendments to allow members of the public to apply for Simi Valley Planning Commission vacancies, including an application review, vetting of experience, and final selection by the entire City Council. In summary, the current procedures for PC appointments are as follows. Requires each council member to nominate one prospective appointee, does not include an application process, limits qualifications to city residency and non-city officials or employees, requires that nominees be interviewed by the City Council, and requires that the appointment of nominees be approved by a majority of the City Council. Based on general research of several cities in California, we identified 5 points of discussion for tonight. First is application requirements, planning commissioner qualifications, at-large or by-district residency, at-large or by council member appointments, and interview processes. The first item is application requirement. The current Planning Commission appointment process requires that each council member present a nominee without the benefit of an application process. This is unlike many city boards and unlike the rest of the city boards and commissions, each of which has an application process. Staff does suggest that the City Council consider an application process for Planning Commission vacancies to allow interested citizens the opportunity to apply and present their skills, expertise, and interests for consideration. Next is Planning Commissioner qualifications. Again, currently the Simi Valley Planning Commissioners must reside in the city and not be a current city employee or official. However, some jurisdictions have specific skill sets desired for their Planning Commission members, such as experience in the architecture field or landscape architecture or design considerations. The city may wish to consider that applicants demonstrate these qualifications based on expertise and areas of interest. They could describe their skills in an application and in an interview process if utilized with the interview discussions with the City Council. The City Council may also wish to consider requiring that Planning Commission or applicants be considered registered voters, and if they voted in the most recent election. The next item is, should planning commissioners be selected by an at-large or by district process? It is recommended that you consider whether to nominate commissioners at-large from across the city, or if commissioners must reside in the same district from which the council member was elected, should that process be considered. Which comes into the one of the bigger topics of the night, whether planning commissioners should be an at-large selection or by council member planning commission appointments. If the city council desires to uncouple commission seats from individual council members, the planning commission could be modified to become an at-large commission where nominations for all seats can come from the entire city council and appointments are not connected to a council member's term of office. Should this happen, appointments should be staggered so that all 4-year terms do not expire in the same year. Lastly, there's an interview process. Currently, planning commission applicants that have been nominated by a council member typically respond to interview questions in front of the council prior to their appointment. Staff recommends that if an applicant meets the qualifications as determined by the city council, that all interviews of applicants take place in a duly noticed public meeting and with the same interview questions for all applicants. Potential considerations tonight would be to direct staff to prepare an ordinance amending the code to modify the planning commission vacancy procedures as determined, or maintain the current process and do not return with modifications, or provide additional direction or any combination thereof. I'll be available to go through the 5 talking points and take notes as we proceed. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. I think I'll start off because if I remember correctly, I was the one that asked for this to be agendized and wanted this council to discuss this process. And first of all, I'd like to say that it would be my intent that there would be no change whatsoever to the current commissioners. It would only be when a newly elected council member comes on board that any change would be enacted. So there's no chance, this isn't targeted at anybody, at any planning commissioner, and it's not targeted at any council member, and I did not target myself, so as for some reason. So what I see, I feel has been lacking in this city government is a level of professionalism and the way we conduct business in determining who's going to be on commissions and boards, so on. And we've got a process like for neighborhood council where they have to apply, and we review their application, and then we interview them, and then that process, whoever interviews them from the board or the council, then brings forward a recommendation. But what's unique about the neighborhood council, which I think is very strong and good, is it opens the process to the entire residency of the city. So currently, the way we do it is I get to nominate one individual and bring to the council. Why should I have that ability to only choose one And why should our residents not be able to apply and say, hey, I would like to be on the city planning commission? And so I think that, just like the way we do neighborhood council, is a much more fair way of doing it, a more professional way of doing it. And also, it'll bring the level of our expertise on the planning commission in this particular case. It'll bring that level up. The other thing is, the planning commission does get a stipend. And it's easy to have the appearance that a council member is rewarding their campaign manager, their friend from the motorcycle shop, who knows? But with only being able to bring in one, it's too close. It's not an open process. And that's what I would like to do from the transparency point of view, is let those individuals that are aware of it, who do not apply now because there's no way for them to apply unless they happen to know the council member who is in a position to nominate them. And I think we all have seen over the years that we rarely, very rarely, challenge any appointment or nomination. We just give it the rubber stamp and that's it. Maybe a brief interview, but the reality is once the council member chooses somebody, that person is going to be on the planning commission and no one else has an opportunity to apply for it. And we really don't look at the qualifications. And I think it's a very important position, and we want people that are qualified, and we want to have the entire council closely review the application and make a selection of the most qualified person and bring them on board instead of your best friend or whatever the case may be. And that's why I brought this up, and that's why I would like to see it change to where it's not a one-person appointment and where the citizenry of the city has an opportunity to apply for such a position. There may be people out there with skills that would be appropriate for the Planning Commission and give them an opportunity to do that. So that's the reason I brought it up. And I think for the reason of transparency and to avoid some criticism that could, I don't believe it has come out yet. I don't think we've ever experienced that where someone's been accused of rewarding a person, but there's always that potential in the future. And once again, I have no desire to change anything today. I don't want to change the Planning Commission, that's fine. I just wanted to open it up in the future to the entire residency of the city. So with that, we'll go to other comments and we'll start with Dee Dee Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a good subject to bring up and to discuss openly. I do see that we are pretty much in compliance with the other communities in our area, but I came in here with one opinion, but listening to you, I'm kind of switching it a little bit. I think the selection of our neighborhood council is one of our strongest points. It allows all of our community members to participate if they so wish. They fill out an application, they're interviewed, and then they have to be approved. I could see applying that same lineup to the Planning Commission, where we have an application, they submit, and they're interviewed by the two renewing sitting council people. And then they select two of those people. So it's very similar. And then those two people are then brought to the city council for approval by everyone. So it would be exactly the same way that we're doing it for the neighborhood council. I think bringing every applicant up to the full 5 of us might be a lot of work. So I would look to more streamline it along the lines of the neighborhood council. But I think the application part is really key because that is not something that we really have been doing lately. I remember years ago when I applied for an open seat on the city council. I had a major application to fill out and, a resume and all kinds of stuff. I wasn't selected, but I remember going through the steps and then everyone, being interviewed. So I think for a planning commission meeting, I like the lineup of doing it the same way we do as a neighborhood council member. That would be my opinion.
Okay, and I would like to point out before we move on to Councilmember Luevanos that I haven't really given thought and consideration into districts or at large. I think, this could be something we could at least agree to move on, or you can say, no, we're not going to address this. But that's another almost entirely different subject, and that can be addressed also. But I'm
Right.
confessing I didn't give that a lot of thought.
Right, because my opinion would be, if you do it by district, you're limiting some of the qualifications possibly. This is just my thought. But you're also, if you're the council person, you want the person that you're recommending for appointment be somewhat on the same plan mindset as you yourself are for what's good for this community. So I would prefer to leave it at large, but again, that could probably be
So
a
do you
conversation.
let
at a
staff
second
work
time.
on too.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Luevanos.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with some of what Councilmember Kavanaugh is talking in terms of having an application process, but I just want to bring some history and some light to the changing of policies, because changing policies is something that we should never take lightly. And there have been multiple policies that have been changed since I was elected as the only Democrat and the only woman of color on Simi Valley City Council, and that there were policies that were made and put in place specifically to avoid partisanship and division in this city, such as the rotational, policy for mayor pro tem, and that was changed as soon as I was elected. Such as adding an item to agenda, that policy was changed to require a second to make it impossible for me as the only Democrat to be able to add an item to the agenda without a second. And we just heard earlier today that, it is very subjective. If we want to be subjective, if we want to have qualified people, then we need to have a rubric. We just heard earlier in this meeting that the Area Housing Authority of the County of Ventura Board of Commissioners, and I know because I've served on the Neighborhood Council, there is a set list of questions, but there is not a rubric upon which to judge the answers to make sure that we are not being completely subjective and being partisan or playing favoritism with our friends anyways. And so we have to decide whether or not we are setting this policy to do what's in the best interest of the community, or if we are doing this to promote partisanship and division. There are already a number of things that are in place here, which means that a council member can nominate one prospective employee. This is in the report on page 2, and that they have to be interviewed and they have to be appointed by a majority of the city council. And the mayor, as a matter of fact, once looking at the actual ordinance that's in there, the mayor has the power to deny. Right here it says on page 2, the mayor shall not refuse to appoint any nominee otherwise qualified to serve on the planning commission. So we already have built into it that they should be qualified because the language is in there already. And it has to have a majority of the vote of all the members of the council. So even upon appointment or nomination by a city council member, not appointment, you still have to get appointment by the majority of the city council members. And so if city council members, a majority of them, felt that the person that was being appointed by the city council member was not qualified, then that would be able to be brought up. I know that both planning commissioners that I nominated were under very, very high scrutiny in terms of their qualifications. And it was the first time that any planning commissioner, with the exception of Councilmember Litzer's appointment, who was after my initial appointment of a planning commissioner, that we had any planning commissioners be under any scrutiny. And so I want to make sure that we're making policy. I do agree that we should look at the qualifications of commissioners. I did look at, some past planning commissioners, and I personally, I didn't feel that all of them had the background or experience that they should have had to do the job. There's very complicated issues that are on there. Land use is a complicated issue. But if we're looking at qualifications and making sure that we appoint qualified people to do the job of being a planning commissioner, then we have to be equal and we have to promote the equity across the board. I asked to be on, to to be on the commission, and I'm highly qualified. I have a law degree and a background in land use to be on certain commissions that involved, like the Planning Commission, affordable housing. And yet, even though I'm highly qualified, I was denied that opportunity. So I want to make sure that we're equitable, and I want to make sure that we actually are imposing policies that improve outcomes for all of the residents in this community, and that everyone is given the opportunity to actually partake in that process. Because I don't see this as specifically that process, and seeing the history of how planning commissioners specifically have been treated with regard to, since I have been elected by the people of Simi Valley, there has been no equity here. So if we want qualified people, then we can do qualified people, and we can make sure that, we don't look at the name, so we're not appointing our friends. So that we look at simply the qualifications. We can have oral interviews. We can do a number of things to make sure that we are actually picking qualified people. We can also look at the opportunity of saying, okay, we have new city council members. You want to apply to be nominated by a city council member, then you can submit your applications to those new city council members or the new mayor, whoever that may be. But I just want to make sure that we're looking at the history of changing policy in the city, and that we're not doing it to promote division and partisanship, and that we are actually doing it to do what's in the best interest. And in order to do that, you need to have a rubric. You can't just say, I'm a teacher, I am constantly, every single day, asked to prove what I'm doing and how I am doing it and why I am doing it. And in order to prove that we are actually not being subjective, but that we are actually being objective in our decisions about whether or not someone is qualified, we have to have a rubric. There has to be a rubric on neighborhood council for how we decide whether or not the person is qualified, and for planning commission as well.
Okay, I would like to respond that my whole desire is to open this to our citizens. That is not open to the citizens right now. And I would like to ask you, if this unfair process, which planning commissioner that you had was unfairly treated?
How is it, well, I would like to ask you a question, Mayor. How is this process not open to residents of the city right now?
Because it's only one council member makes the choice for the nomination, and not all the residents know the council member. So they don't know to approach them. And to make it fair, you publish it and you open it to everybody, every citizen.
Is there anything right now
But
forbidding
first, would you
council members
answer my question?
from asking for qualified nominees?
Okay, but you said there's an unfair process.
I'd like an answer to my question, because you said there is no opportunity. So there's not, as far as I know, there is nothing banning city
Well,
council members
you
from
may be
asking for
technically
nominations. Is
correct,
that true or not
But
true?
it's not open. Okay, that's your answer. But my question is.
But there's nothing
how was
banning them
your
from opening it
planning
up.
commissioners unfairly treated? I mean, you had, forgive me, I forgot his last name, but John somebody.
Castleberry.
Yeah, very good planning commissioner. How was he mistreated?
Yes, he was the first one that was brought forth and interviewed in many,
Also,
many,
we
many
started
years.
doing things right, and that's a problem.
Why is it that you started doing things in your terms, and I quote you, Mayor, right, when the first Democrat and the only and first and only woman of color is elected to city council?
I could care less if he is a Democrat, Republican, liberal, or whatever. We are here to serve the citizens of this people and what's best for this city. It's nonpartisan. And I've looked at it that way. I looked at him that way. And your next, I think it was followed up with the lady. Don Gray. Okay. It doesn't matter what party she belongs to. Will she do good for the community? We determined she would, and we said yes.
Yes, but
So I have a problem with these problems that you're quoting are, at least in my mind, they're non-existent.
They are facts. I'm quoting facts. That is what has happened in the
I'm
past
quoting
3
facts,
years.
too. They were both appointed, voted on by this council, and they served. One left on his own. I think he left the area. And the other one, I think, still serves.
But under stricter scrutiny than any
So
other
that's a
planning
fact.
commissioner that had been
That's a
appointed,
fact.
with
Am
the
I correct?
exception of
Is that a fact
Councilwoman
that they're
Lister.
on and they
What's the
serve?
fact that with the exception of Councilwoman Lister, when she was appointed, then we did bring in her planning commissioner and we all questioned him. But it wasn't until I was elected that that policy was finally effectuated, that it was finally enforced. And that says a lot to the
So you're
members of the
saying we shouldn't
community.
enforce our policies?
We're not
That's a
enforcing the
strange
RV policy, and I've been asking why and who authorized that for 3 years.
Mayor, may I
Yes,
share some of my
you're
thoughts, please? Actually, I wanted to say, first of all, thank you for having this discussion tonight, because as the caller articulated, it is always good to look at our policies and to examine what we're doing and see if they're effective and see if they need to be changed. As I read through the report carefully, it actually struck out, it was interesting that you're having this discussion right now, because it came to my attention that part of our requirement is that we are to interview the person that is selected. And I thought to myself, I don't know that I ever saw that before, that was part of the process. And so I was pleased to have that brought to my attention, that every time a planning commissioner is put forward to us to be approved or recommended, we are to interview as a group. And so I hope going forward that we take that to heart and continue that interviewing of whomever is nominated. But I wanted to actually articulate maybe my position on this. When we are elected because of our values, our opinions, for various reasons. Our constituents feel that we're the right person for the job. And the one appointment that we get to make in that position, or a recommendation, I should say, is the planning commissioner. And I will tell you, I was very naive when I was appointed. I didn't know that was part of my process, of that would come with this job. And when that was explained to me, I felt this weight of, oh my, I get to, that's going to be part of my responsibility. And I remember at that time, several people expressed interest to me. I had council members suggest names to me. I remember talking to people and really gathering a group of names to think about and vet and sit down and call and talk to them. And so that was my response to this responsibility. I will tell you that I think I selected a wonderful planning commissioner. I'm very appreciative of John Tolson, what he does. But I do think having that opportunity was, you've suggested it could be nepotism if we're not careful. That wasn't anything that I had no idea they even got paid. I want you to know that. That's another thing that I've learned in the process.
Well, and that's fair. That's fair.
And so, but what I came to appreciate is that that person is also an extension of me as an elected person, my ideas and thoughts. I wanted that planning commissioner to also represent my ideas and thoughts. And so I see value in our being able to appoint and select that person, that one person, and having that person, in essence, kind of represent us on the planning commission, as we see in the report that many other cities have. Now, that being said, you raise a valid point about, well, access. Yes, the people that I knew about and came to me and were recommended, I could see that we could, every time someone is elected, I could see if you were interested in serving on the planning commission, fill out an application and then allow, for instance, I know the next election, the next mayor could go through the pile of people who are interested, so that person could come up with, or the next city council member could also take from their own ideas, but then also look through this list. I mean, I could see that but yes, they should also everyone should fill out the same application. I would agree with that. I could see, that would be my recommendation for a possible modification, which would allow for more access as you desired. But I personally see great value in having that representation of myself on the planning commission, and I personally don't want to see that part changed.
I have to ask you then the question, then why do we have a planning commissioner if you just want to extend your beliefs? I was taught as a planning commissioner, don't come to me and ask questions. That was what my appointed person said. you are independent, you are on your own.
They are independent, but we vet them, I think, before you ever select them. I hope
What
you
just
did.
said, extension of you.
I meant as they're placed. I don't mean, John never comes and say, how should I vote on this? Never, ever does he ever do that. But before I ever just made that decision, I will tell you, there was several names that were suggested. There was one person who was suggested to me, as I learned his philosophy on certain dispensaries, I thought, that's not my philosophy. That may not be what I want on the planning commission.
And I'm asking for this
So,
entire council to have more opportunity to choose that independent planning commissioner and put them out there at large, or maybe it by district, like I said. But the point is, it's not my planning commissioner doing what I tell them to do.
you were, and I thank you, Mayor, for clarifying that. You're absolutely right. But I do think that when we vet the person that we feel we want to be there, we are carefully looking at their ideas and values, and then they are independent, absolutely, and they may surprise us, and often they do. In fact, you'll notice on this last issue, my planning commission, or the planning commission I selected, voted differently than I did on that last item,
That's
but
fine.
so be it.
Yeah, but I think where I'm going with the discussion with you is we could do the same thing with the neighborhood council. Is, okay, we don't need to go through the process, we'll just appoint people.
See, the neighbor,
And I'm trying to make it consistently throughout the city.
Well, and I would-
avoid any pitfalls where that we stand in a position, deserved or not, that we
right.
get criticized.
Mayor, the neighborhood council was established 50 years ago. We're one of the first cities that have that. It's a wonderful what we have, and anyone in the city can apply for it. And we have a system where every 6 months or every whatever it is, more come on, more go off. It's a wonderful system we have in place. And I would, to your point, I would agree, it would be good to have an application process, so anyone who wants to serve on the planning commission could be in consideration when an opening comes available. But I value that opportunity to, that one thing. For instance, when we had this budget committee, we also each selected one person to be on the budget committee.
Right.
And that was, I think that represented well our concerns, and we didn't tell them what to do, but they did their own thing and came forward with some great recommendations for budget concerns. So there are other instances where we have appointed a person. And so in my case, in this instance, I see value in the way we currently have it with some tweaking with your suggestion of application.
My concern is, and it's fine, and I expected this dialogue, that's fine. But also, don't let it become I'm going to use the wrong term, but ego thing. Well, I get to appoint the council or the planning commissioner. It's not about that. It's the best system for the city. That's all I'm searching for. And I don't think our current system is the best system that we could devise for our city. And again, it truly, no thought whatsoever of partisanship. To me, it's just a matter of getting a number of qualified applicants, and then this body choosing which will be best for the city. And that's as simple as I can put it.
Then the solution to that would be,
Can
Mayor,
speak
if I
now,
may.
or
I'm sorry.
What are we doing?
If I may, Mayor, the solution to that would be simply every time, as Councilwoman Litzler mentioned, every time we have a new council member or mayor, that we put out an ad and we ask them to send applications to whoever that new council member or mayor will be, and that there is a layer, what Councilwoman Litzler is saying is, and I agree, is that there is also, it's not just an ego trip, it's also a layer of accountability. Because if you appoint that planning commissioner and you're an elected official, then your constituents, the residents, are going to come to you and say, hey, I don't like the way the planning commissioner you appointed voted on this or on that. And that does happen. And that is a layer of accountability.
You're not wrong there.
Because they will let you know, and they will say, I'm not voting for you because of what your planning commissioner did. So there is a layer of accountability there, a checks and balance, shall we call it that.
No,
That is along with that. But in terms of getting a bigger pool of applicants, and when you mentioned this, that's where I thought this was going, in terms of let's advertise so that everyone gets a pile of applications and we can see it. And then maybe, if I say, hey, you know what, these were my top three, but I only had to pick one, and then maybe I pass that on to, Councilwoman
Well,
Kavanaugh, or you pass it on, and we pass on those applicants along because there are qualified applicants. So, and I didn't mean to interrupt, Councilmember Judge, I'm so sorry.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Judge.
All I wanted to say is we were having a one-way discussion here on this. It's one of those things where I really want to know what's broken. I think it's great that the council members, when they're elected by the people of Simi Valley, we've only had 2 on this dais that have been elected by the districts. Everybody else was elected at large, and one of those was elected at large prior to being elected by district. When you're elected at large in the city of Simi Valley, you're elected by the city of Simi Valley. They're giving you that confidence that they trust what you're doing. That's why you were elected at large by the citizens of Simi Valley. When it comes down to districts, that's a different thing, and we can talk about that later, like you said, Mayor, but I wouldn't have a problem with your planning commissioner being from your district. I think that would only make sense in a way, because when I look for a planning commissioner, I look for somebody that, number one, wasn't political, number two, loved this city as much as I do, and number three, could make common sense decisions. And I think I've proved with my pick for my planning commission that he's done an outstanding job over the last 11 years, and I couldn't have picked anybody better. And I think the city has benefited by it too. So like I said, with this conversation, I think the only thing that should change is maybe the districting. Maybe picking, in the future, picking your appointee by your district. Other than that, I have to agree with Councilmember Luevanos that this is something that's not broken, and I don't really see it needing to be fixed. I've never heard anybody claim corruption because we pick our council, or we pick our planning commissioners. I've never heard anything like that. But as a history lesson, in 2010, Mayor Bob Huber's planning commissioner was selected on a vote of 3-2. So there were 2 council members that did not like his choice for planning commissioner, and I have no idea why, but that happened. So I think we have a system here that's working. I think our planning commissioners, and I mean all of them, because I haven't heard, I don't really have an issue with what any of our planning commissioners have done over the years. They've been on the job. I think it's a system that works well.
And I hope you heard me say this was not to target any planning commissioner. I have no issue with any planning commissioner.
I understand, but my whole thing is...
My only argument with, if you want to call it argument, is my concern is the process.
I get you, and I understand that, and I hear you. But I kind of agree with Councilmember Luevanos here. It's like we're changing the process. Why?
To give more opportunity to the residency.
Well, the residents get their opportunity when they vote on that little checkbox and mark your name down.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, you know what? I'd like to end the conversation. I've got these fingers and I know how to count to 3, and I think I'm in big trouble here. But I want to say I appreciate the conversation. I truly do. It doesn't always have to go each person's way, and I accept that. So thank you very much for the conversation. Next item.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, the next
on.
item on the agenda is item 8B.
Sorry,
Adopt-
Cameron.
Hold on just a second.
I just want to be clear on the staff report here. There are alternatives available to the city council. Am I hearing that it's basically to maintain the existing process and not return with any modifications?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
Okay, let me start over. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, the next item on the agenda is item 8B, adoption of a resolution declaring a Level 2 water supply shortage. The reading of the resolution is as follows. Resolution number WWD 285. A resolution of the Board of Directors of Ventura County Waterworks District Number 8 declaring a Level 2 water supply shortage and rescinding Resolution WWD 266, and Joe Deacon and Wanda Moya are here for this presentation.
Yes, good evening, Chair of the Board and members of the Board. Joining me this evening for this item is Wanda Moyer, our Water Conservation Coordinator. Staff is recommending that the Board declare a Level 2 water supply shortage. This is more restrictive than our Level 1 water supply shortage, which we have maintained in effect since 2017. The Level 2 action includes additional irrigation restrictions. As you heard earlier from Callegas, we are in a state of crucial water supply shortage. While we may still have some stored water to see us through the coming months, we are likely to see mandated cutbacks in water use unless there is a generous rain and, perhaps more importantly, snow in the Sierras this winter. This July, the Governor of California issued an executive order to voluntarily reduce water use by 15% statewide from 2020 levels. Last month, the Golden State Water Company implemented their water rationing requirements for their Simi Valley service area, restricting outdoor irrigation to 3 days per week. The district has been reporting as required to the state on the community's water use. These reports indicate we have only reduced water use by 1.5%. The current Level 1 water supply shortage in effect requires water users to efficiently use water, including measures such as irrigate before 9 a.m. or after 5 p.m. to reduce evaporation, eliminate excessive irrigation runoff, use shorter multi-cycles for irrigation to improve infiltration, fix leaks, breaks, or plumbing malfunctions promptly, do not wash sidewalks or driveways, use dry methods such as a broom or a blower instead. When washing vehicles with a hose, use a trigger shutoff nozzle, and serve water only upon request at restaurants and food service establishments. Staff has utilized social media and water billing messages to promote water conservation and water use efficiency, as well as other promotional activities, including several Simi Valley Acorn and city-focused newsletter articles. Staff also pursues grant funding to implement water efficiency projects and intends to pursue turf removal in city-owned areas utilizing the $3 per square foot incentive program funded by Metropolitan Water District in Callegas. The $3 per square foot turf removal grant is also offered to all water customers in Simi Valley, with more information available on the city's website. If the board approves the recommended action, the Level 2 water supply shortage would become effective on November 1st. Restrictions added to the Level 1 requirements mentioned earlier would be that water leaks must be repaired within 72 hours of notification, and irrigation would be limited to Sunday and Wednesday for even-numbered addresses, and Tuesday and Saturday for odd-numbered addresses starting November 1st through March of next year. And then in April, Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3 days of irrigation would start again for even-numbered addresses, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday for odd-number addresses, and that would be from April through October. Wanda and I are here to answer any questions that you may have. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Councilmember Luevanos.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. I saw you mention that water leaks must be repaired within 72 hours of notification. And my concern is if we have low-income homeowners that can't afford to fix out water leakage. I had a water leakage in my home. It was hundreds of dollars. And, luckily we have savings, but not everyone has that. So if we have a homeowner that has a water leakage and we impose this and they don't have the money to repair it within 72 hours, what can the city do to help them? Can they use the home rehabilitation loans that the city offers, or what can we do to help low-income homeowners? Because not everyone has hundreds and possibly thousands of dollars to fix a major leak that they may not be able to afford.
Well, my first advice would be it's going to cost you a lot less to fix a leak than to continue to waste water and pay an excessively large water bill. But in terms of what programs are available to assist those with low income, I'd really need to look into it and see what the city may offer. It may not be entirely under my control. I'd have to seek assistance to find that answer.
I just don't want to punish low-income homeowners, many of which are aging or retired or just, working several jobs and still not making ends meet, that can't afford to fix it within 72 hours. I don't want to punish people for being poor. And so that's why I'm asking, and I'm kind of looking over here at our city manager to see if there's any kind of program that we can implement. It's not that I don't think we should put in water restrictions. I just don't want to punish people for being poor.
Well, we first of all, we would not be aggressive on going after a homeowner that is not able to fund a repair. If it's an irrigation issue, it's easy to just turn off the irrigation. So that takes care of that issue. If it is a main water line, that's probably something that would have to be addressed right away. There are opportunities. There's 211 that has funding opportunities. There are various Catholic charities and other charities are readily available to help out with low-income homeowners. We're more than happy to connect people. I don't have a list on my head, but we're more than happy to connect people to some organizations that can assist with that.
Okay, that is my concern, because like I said, I don't want to punish people that are not financially in a position. 72 hours is a short amount of time. And the last thing we want is, someone, not being able to fix it and then being punished for that. So I just asked for leniency in regard to especially our low income, our retired, our seniors that are on fixed incomes, not being able to fix that within 72 hours. So that's what I asked for.
Sure, we're not intending to be punitive on this.
And remember, I'm a senior, so I don't want to.
And that once we issue this, if we pass this resolution, that information be provided, whatever resources are available for low-income homeowners to be able to have those opportunities, and maybe even a consideration as part of that $15 million American Rescue funds that we're going to get. Maybe that's something that we can look into, because the infrastructure is lacking in the city, and we haven't invested in a long, long time. So those are things that I hope we consider when we think about how we spend those funds, and maybe consider those funds for that use. Those are my only questions. Thank you, Mr. Deacon.
Just a quick, easy question. Skip Faria used to be with Golden State Water, which is who I have. And I just wanted to clarify, I have a pool in my backyard. So the grass area in the back, I am putting fake grass in. The parkway, I'm putting rock work in. The front yard's going to wait till next year when I have the money. But I was told that a pool, the evaporation is approximately the same as if that were all grass. Is that correct? Because I fill my pool once a week for like 45 minutes. And it's like a one hose thing. So that's not that much, is it?
I think it actually uses less than grass, is that?
Okay.
Do you know that?
Okay.
Yeah, I think the evaporation from a pool is actually less than a grass consumes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Should put a blanket over.
But I may also add, covering your pool really makes a big difference.
Thank you. That's what Brian just suggested. So I'll look into that. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Litzner.
Thank you, Mayor. As you recall, last council meeting, I was concerned because, and thank you for doing the research. I was concerned because of the business owner who the businesses within his building were closed during COVID, hair salon, et cetera, and now they were having to use that as their benchmark for conservation. And as I understand, what your study showed is that even in commercial usage, 2019 was actually a little less than 2020. Is that accurate? That's what I read in the report, that even then, overall, 2020 was slightly higher. So in other words, 2019 wasn't a lot higher and 2020 was lower, correct?
That's what I recall, yes.
I mean, I think that did provide some reassurance for me. Now, obviously, there are some of those outliers that have that experience, and all of a sudden they're being asked now to voluntarily restrict their usage, et cetera, towards a level when they weren't operating. I know right now there's not penalties, at least not I guess in Golden State there is, but we'll talk about it later. But right now, we don't have penalties. But I guess my question is, is there a mechanism for appealing use? You know, let's say they weren't open or for half the year, and now they're being told they need to cut back X amount.
Well, first of all, I want to assure you, because I don't want you to get confused between what Golden State is implementing and what we're implementing. We are not implementing a system which compares your previous use to your current use. We're just restricting irrigation and putting other measures in place. So this concept that you're talking about, where people will be compared on a year-by-year basis, you'll be able to see that on your bill, but you can currently in the district system. But there's no enforcement we are envisioning, and none that's in our resolutions that call for that type of enforcement.
Okay.
So that's unique to Golden State. I wanted to point that out.
I appreciate that, and I think I'm just thinking of our constituents in Simi Valley that are of that need to hear from us, you, and what we're doing.
Yeah, so what we're asking people to do is to restrict use. We'll continue to, like I say, on our bill, we'll show you what you've used the last similar period to this, last July versus this July, and whether you're reducing or not. But there's no enforcement, no penalty, no further restriction. That's just for you to guide your own actions.
Which is, I think, very appropriate, and given what the earlier presentation certainly substantiates why we need to do this. Yeah, so thank you. Okay, appreciate that clarification.
Mayor, can I ask another question?
Okay.
In the report, you stated that the water usage right now, as requested, right, because there's no, as Councilwoman Lister said, teeth, right, to the request, has only been 1.5%. Is that correct? On page 4 in the second paragraph, it says the district's cumulative reduction is only 1.5%.
Yes.
So if we changed the water rates based on the amount of water used, would that be, first of all, is that a possibility? Can we change the water rates based on water usage?
You would have to go through the hearing process in order to do that.
Okay. Because if, and this was something that I mentioned when we changed the tiered water rates, because I didn't want people that were bigger consumers of water to be paid for, right, by people that use less water. And that's what we ended up doing in effect when we passed the tiered water rates that we passed. And so there is a possibility that we could change the water rate so that there would be a financial disincentive for people to not use as much water. Is that correct?
You can change the rates, but we would have to go through the rate changing process in order to do it.
Right, because if we've only reduced our water usage by 1.5%, that's not much. And we know that this has been coming for a long time. We know that fresh water is a commodity. We're lucky that we live in a place where you can turn on the faucet and get fresh water. A lot of places around the world, that's not even possible. So the fact that we can do it here, it is a privilege to get to do that.
One of the reason we're recommending the action tonight is to take another step to try and not to make any excuses. The entire state isn't doing much better than our community is.
Right. Yes.
No one's, the state cumulatively is not doing 2% yet. So we all need to do more, I agree, and we are recommending an action tonight that is available to you that will hopefully make progress toward getting us better toward our 15% request.
I would just like that to be communicated to the public somehow, besides here at the city council meeting, that we've only reduced water usage by 1.5%. So whatever we were doing, like, we're not doing enough. We're not there yet. And that's why this action has to be taken tonight, because we will have a significant reduction in water usage, which is, we're going to be rationing water soon if we do not do something now, and if we do not do something quickly and everyone plays their part.
We're going by the way of the state, because the state as a whole, the governor is going to put out the mandatory reductions and possibly any teeth if you don't, if the district, not individual customers, if the district does not meet mandatory reduction requirements as what happened in 2015, the district could see penalties. But that would come down from the state, where the entire state is going to live or survive or die through voluntary reductions. And if they don't get there, it's going to be mandatory reductions. So we're more than happy to include that communication in our message out to the public. Is that we're all in this together, but I do want to say it's a statewide issue.
But we as water board members have the ability and opportunity to set policy that changes the water usage through our tiered water rates to incentivize people to use less water.
For our district, yes, it does.
So we are the policymakers here that can set that policy. So we can have another hearing. We can change the tiered water rates so that people are incentivized to use less water. Our larger water users are incentivized to use less water. Because if it costs more, they're gonna use less of it, hopefully. And that's what I heard from Mr. Deacon earlier, that if people have to pay more for it, they're likely to use less of it. So I just want us to consider that, and I will bring it up as a 9B
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt.
option.
I think we're getting a little far afield, and there are also other legal implications in Prop 218 and so forth as it relates to water rates. So I think we should probably agendize that for further discussion, if I can be so bold.
I'll bring it up for 9B.
Okay,
Can I make a motion, Mayor?
I'm sorry.
I move to adopt resolution
Oh,
number.
wait a minute, I'd like to speak.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate you letting me speak. First of all, I think because of you in particular, but the city, our city has done a tremendous job in reducing the amount of water they used. So the last thing I'd want to see is penalty based on rate increase to encourage them to even save more than what they're already doing. Because I think we're the model city for reduction in use. So am I correct there somewhat?
Well, we're going to see if we can do more, that's for sure. I mean,
I
I realize, and I know people are fatigued by it. We we're in another period where we're going to really ask people to continue to try and do their best.
Look how many yards we've seen torn out.
Yeah.
And I just want to salute our residents for doing a great job.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
we're not stopping there. I'm not suggesting that. Of
Right.
course, someone will say I am. I'm not. I know we have to move forward, and I'm glad you brought this forward because I'm looking forward to voting for it and see us continue that forward movement of reduction. That brings me to a question I think I saw in the program that the man from Caligas put on is we're going to reduce our turf, our grass here at City Hall by a certain amount. Am I correct on that?
We've had some projects to remove turf here at City Hall, and is that a future project as well?
In front of the DMV, yeah. And on page 14, we have our
That's it.
proposed
That was-
project at the corner of Tapo Canyon and Alamo by the police station, then along Tapo Canyon.
I would encourage us, because when I walk in here almost daily, and knowing that we're going to come here and ask to put restrictions and even wanting to raise prices potentially, I look up the lawn. We have to set the example is where I'm going. And so I look at this big lawn out here. It's beautiful. I get it. So was mine before I tore it out. And that's just the price we have to pay. But I think that the city needs to set the example. So if there's any way you can expand that, and I'll look at the city manager also, and start that movement going. So we're demonstrating what we're asking the residents to do.
We'll continue to do that, and both sides of that, both implementing things and sharing with the community how we're leading the way and doing our part.
Yeah.
Mayor, can I
Thank
make?
you very much.
Can I make just a quick comment?
I'm sorry. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
go ahead.
just a quick comment based on that same line. I just wanted to compliment you. I just asked the city manager, the Galena Parkway work that was just completed. Landscaping was taken out and rock and drought tolerant plants. It looks fantastic. So great job right there.
Wanda's a big part of putting those
Well,
projects
congrats.
together.
It looks great.
She's over here patting herself on the back.
Mayor, may I make a motion?
Sure.
I move to adopt resolution number WWD-285 declaring a level 2 water supply shortage.
Second.
Motion is second, call for the vote.
Was that the full motion? That wasn't the full motion in the.
Can we, Tamara, was that the full motion?
That's what was in the staff report.
That's, well, this,
That's what it said.
It is? Okay,
Yeah, staff recommendation.
thank you.
Yeah.
this is what I was reading.
Yep.
That's what I was reading. Anyway, I'm sorry. Oh, no big deal.
I'm so sorry. Can we just clarify that motion again? I just want to make sure it's consistent with what's in the staff report. I apologize.
Yes, I move to adopt resolution number WWD-285 declaring a level 2 water supply shortage.
Limiting water, I think it continues on.
Oh, that's a different part. It's up higher.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Number 1?
Yeah.
I move to adopt attached resolution number WWD-285 declaring a level 2 water supply shortage, limiting watering to 2 designated days per week during the months of November through March, and 3 designated days per week during the months of April through October, with November 1st, 2021 as the effective date of the resolution.
Second.
No, we're good.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, next on the agenda is item 9A, City Council Member Reports.
Okay, Councilmember Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Thursday, September 30th, I, along with, I believe, most of the city council, attended the AWA member and policymakers reception over at the Ronald Reagan Library. The AWA is the Association of Water, oh, they left, agencies, there you go, acronyms. And it was a great event, it always is. They had a speaker, it was our Assemblywoman Suzette Valadares, and she did a great job giving a speech. Basically, you were there to meet your people that help you distribute water throughout the county, and it's always an interesting talk, especially when you start talking to people like we had give us the presentation today from Callegas. On Friday, October 1st, I attended the VCTC meeting virtually. We're still working on putting in a new CEO. Biggest thing that happened during that meeting, though, we voted not to take any action on the proposed spending plan for a possible 1.5-cent tax increase that might be on the ballot in 2022. On Saturday, October 2nd, I was surprised by my wife and some staff members here and some council members at a retirement party. I want to thank my wife for doing that. It was very nice. My brother came in from Alabama for that. I was very surprised. On Thursday, October 7th, I attended the Southern California Association of Governments Regional Council and Transportation Committee virtually. That again was mostly dealt with SCAG, with the SCAG policy that doesn't really have too much to do with City of Simi Valley right now. When it does, I will bring that back. The Transportation Committee had a couple of good presentations on Caltrans projects that I'm going to try and get brought back to the council later. On Friday, October 8th, I attended the Crosstown Rivalry, Simi Valley versus Royal High School championship football game. Simi Valley won the game. Earlier that day, I attended the Simi Valley Police Foundation annual trap shoot for the raising money for our canines and for other equipment that the city doesn't budget for our police department's safety. It was a great shoot. There was a lot of people there. Hopefully, they raised a lot of money. On Saturday, October 9th, I attended the high school reunion for my high school class, including the classes of 1979, 80, and 81. So it was a good night. Saw a lot of people that I haven't seen in a long time. On Monday, October 11th, which is today, I attended the Council on Aging meeting, and it's back to in-person at the Senior Center. That's my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Litzner.
Thank you, Mayor. Just touch on a couple of things similar to what Councilmember Judge commented. I also attended on September 30th, the AWA member policymaking reception. I wanted to commend our own Mayor Pro Tem Dee Dee Kavanaugh, who led the Pledge of Allegiance at that event. And also wanted to congratulate Joe Deacon, who was just here presenting, who is actually the AWA president-elect. And I didn't realize that until that evening, and I think it shows the leadership that is taking place here in Simi Valley, and appreciate what our employees and appreciate what Joe is doing. On Wednesday, October 6th, I attended the Simi Valley Education Foundation Teacher of the Month presentation on behalf of the city. Melissa Nichols of the Simi Institute was acknowledged or recognized for 30-plus years working with helping people achieve their high school graduation and earn their GED, and just the great work that she is doing so that people can further their lives and careers, and it was good to recognize her. On Thursday, October 7th, I attended the SCAG Regional Council for Energy and the Environment Committee. A few things that were of interest that came out of that. One, actually, the very first, someone in public comments wanted to make sure people were aware of the water management grant funding that's going to be available. Funny that we're talking about water. I thought it was appropriate then to mention this tonight in conjunction with AB 361, but that $200 million is available and applications are due early next year. And so as we explore possible water projects, it's good to know that funding source. Also was announced the Regional Early Action Planning Grant has been received by SCAG. REAP 2021, they just received another $246 million for plans, policies, and capital projects, of which the cities can apply for and to tap into those funds. So hopefully we will be in a position to do so. And I too attended the Crosstown Rivalry. I love that game having my son played for Simi High. I have to tell you that every time there was a score, I texted him the score, and so 7-0, 14-0, 14-6, 20. Anyways, I was just every time there's a score, it was very fun. But I wanted to say special thank you to Simi Valley Adventist Hospital, who provided the meal for the elected officials and others who gathered at the beginning in the end zone, and it was just a lovely night. And it reminded me of some of the things that make Simi Valley truly special, that we can come together for a fun evening and have this fun rivalry and celebrate and enjoy, and regardless who wins or loses, we can just have a great time together. And that's just one of the many very special things about this community. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Luevanos.
Thank you, Mayor. On Thursday, September 30th, I also attended the Association of Water Agencies at the Ronald Reagan Library. On Saturday, October 2nd, the Promotoras por Justicia Migratoria, along with MICOP, that serves Mixteco and indigenous populations in Ventura and Santa Barbara counties, had a family resource fair for immigrants in Santa Paula. And they invited me to attend. And everyone I spoke to there were all kinds of agencies from Ventura County who said they would love to come and have this resource fair here in Simi Valley. And it included all kinds of resources, legal resources, fighting drug abuse, COVID vaccinations, like everything that the county offers, from the Ventura County Public Department of Health and behavioral health and resources for homeless. And so it's just amazing. So I'm hoping to work with our city manager to see if we can bring that kind of resource fair here to Simi Valley. On Sunday, October 3rd, I attended the Cross Culture Concerts with Psy Arts R Us at the invitation of Dr. Ranjini Kaushik. And it was wonderful to hear all of these performers talk about the integration of Indian arts into Mexican culture and vice versa, Mexican arts into the Indian culture. And that's really what it was about. And there were amazing experts that were there. talking about the artwork and the dances and how much they learned studying in Mexico and vice versa in India, and bringing those cultures meshing together. I don't think people realize there was a huge mixing in California because there were so many Indian migrant workers on the farms, and there was a restriction on Indian women in the early 1900s coming to the United States of America. So a lot of them married Mexican women. So there's a lot of cross-cultural relationships and history here in the state of California between the Indian community and the Mexican community. And I think that's where the melding of these cultures comes from. On Thursday, October 7th, it was the first day of Sharad Navratri. So if you celebrate that, I want to wish you a happy Sharad Navratri on that day. And on the afternoon, I attended the Clean Power Alliance meeting, and just some information that will be coming out to you that we are going to be, we did adopt the time of use restrictions that SoCal Edison has adopted to be in alignment with them and to also meet the restrictions of the state of California, to make sure that we are looking at when energy is available, when it's not available. So there will be two options, and there will be lots of information that is coming out to you via email, flyers, social media, and the time of use restrictions will be a choice of whether you will pay a higher rate from 5 to 8 or from 4 to 9. It depends on what your preference is, but that will be coming to you. So please keep an eye out for that if you are a member of the Clean Power Alliance. And again, we're doing this in alignment with SoCal Edison. So if you have SCE or Clean Power Alliance, you're going to have these time of use surcharges anyways. So just be cognizant of that and be aware of that. And part of that is, just so people get a bigger picture, part of that is the energy flux and energy usage that we've had. And part of that does actually relate to the climate change that we saw in Texas with the major, snowstorm that happened there that people didn't expect. And so all of that has a cascading effect. And for the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to be dealing with shortage of energy, and how do we make sure we have enough energy during certain times of the day. On Sunday, October 10th, I attended the premiere of a wonderful film in Santa Clarita called Scrum. It's about the first African NAACP Santa Clarita had this event, and it's a film called Scrum, and it's about the first African-American rugby coach in the United States of America who won the national championship. So if you Remember the Titans, you would love Scrum. It's a great film, very inspirational. We actually got to meet the coach who came, and Bill Withers' daughter, Corey Withers, came and performed live. She sang Ain't No Sunshine and Lean on Me. And it was, we all had goosebumps just hearing her sing. So I highly recommend that. And I want to wish everyone today happy Indigenous Peoples Day. We thank the Chumash for allowing us to use their name, Shimi, to name our city, Simi Valley. Today is also National Coming Out Day, and I want to let everyone know that you are welcome in this city. You are welcome. You can see it from the flags in my window, that if you're a member of the LGBTQIA community, that there is support here in this community for you. Today is also, I want to wish everyone the first day of the Durga Puja Festival, and I want to wish you a happy Durga Puja. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I just wanted to, again, thank the Simi Valley Youth Council and Ella for my rock. Mine says, "You rock." So it's really cute. I'm very happy to have that, so thank you. My list is going to sound a lot like Mike Judge's. I think I might have been following him everywhere. So on September 30th, I attended the AWA reception. Again, wanted to congratulate our Assistant Director of Public Works, Joe Deacon, on being the incoming president. Like Councilmember Lister said, that just shows the respect and knowledge of him and his work that the rest of the agencies have for him. So, and on 10/2, I had the opportunity of attending the retirement surprise party for Mr. Mike Judge there. He was definitely surprised, but the best look was when his brother walked up to him and he turned around. That was priceless. That was really priceless. On October 8th, I attended the Simi Valley Police Foundation's Trap Shoot. Thank you to Wade Klepek for chairing it. And my team came in 3rd place. That was totally out of control. I have no idea how. We did have Alonzo, who was very good. So everyone says he carried us through. But I got 23 out of 50. So I have doubled my score each time. So I go once a year. So, but it was a lot of fun. There were a lot of people there supporting the police department. There were officers actually there shooting, and everyone had a good time. And thank you to the chief for coming out, taking pictures with everybody and hanging out, and definitely letting us know you were thankful for everything we do. On that night, I also attended the Simi Valley Royal City Championship game. Royal got creamed. I'm sorry, Royal guys, but I know your heart was there. And I know I saw number 11 go limping off in the beginning. And I know he's one of their key players. Jessup, I think his last name is. So I hope he's feeling better. But congratulations to Simi Valley High School. It was a great win. It was my grandson, who is almost 2, his first football game. He had a blast between the marching bands and the lights and the two schools. My favorite part is the two schools' spirit areas. They have the Maroon Mob, and I can't remember what Royal calls theirs, but you got to give Simi credit. They have the best Maroon Mob I've ever seen. They're really, really good. They make the game a lot of fun. And that's it for my activity here in town. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. While we're talking about the game that you lost, my rock has Simi Valley colors. So, our team rocked and clobbered, annihilated. Anyway, that was a good game, and it was fun to see everybody having so much fun on both sides. So, yeah, very, very good. Mike, I'm sorry I couldn't attend your retirement. I have to congratulate my daughter. That was her wedding day, and she had a destination wedding in New Orleans. And thank you, Ruth, for telling me about the World War II museum. It was spectacular. And that traveling time kind of wiped out almost everything else that I should have been doing here in town. But where else was I going? The game, and that's kind of it. I'm really proud of Simi on that game, though. That was tops. And
Rub it in.
Ella did a wonderful job tonight. I agree with you on that, and thank you, Ella, for whoever did the artwork on the rocks.
Just a little shout out to Royal, though, because Simi's had an outstanding season. Royal just happens to be one of the many victims so far this year.
I did read something that there's been only like 3 teams that have even scored on Simi.
Yeah,
So
apparently Simi
at least
is-
yay Royal on that.
Yeah. Well, but anyway, I'll keep that to my report. And I've got great news tonight. Well, first of all, we got to go to future agenda items, and then I'll tell you the great news. So, anybody have any future agenda items they want to bring up?
Mayor, I have a question and a request. I know that the RV ordinance is supposed to come back, so I'd like to know when it's coming back.
November 22.
Okay. And we're actually going to do something with the ordinance, yes?
That's up to the council.
Okay. And my request is, again, I don't know if this is a follow-up or if it's a request. We had looked, and I would like Golden State Water to come to address the issue of whether or not they are surcharging our customers, which is a third of our city, for this water supply shortage usage. I would like to know whether or not they're using groundwater. I would like them to answer a number of questions that the residents would like answered.
I don't
And
think
to
you
be
need
held
a
accountable.
I don't think you need a second, but if you do, I will.
Yeah, okay.
I've already got the note from earlier in the meeting, so we will contact them and.
And sooner rather than later, before the end of the year, I'd like to see that on the agenda, if that's possible.
Sure, okay, well.
Okay. That's it? All right, my good news is, tonight we adjourn and not in memory of anybody, which is a good sign. And it's always much better to end a meeting on a positive note, and that's absolutely positive in my book. That we'll do that. So, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.